Welcome back. As the Washington Post reported today, this week was designed to be a triumphant one for President Trump. After all, he hosted his favorite foreign leader, the man he has repeatedly, we mean repeatedly, shown affection for, genuine affection for French President Emmanuel Macron at the White House. He watched and he took credit for the leaders of North and South Korea meeting for the first time and talking peace. But on the other hand, as the Post writes, it became another week in which the Trump administration was convulsed by chaos and contradiction. And joining us for more are Rita Farentino, the former chair of the Sarasota Democratic Party, Rod Thompson of the RevolutionaryAct.com, and Wendy March of the Tampa Bay Times. So, Rod, we want to get your reaction to that, because there were a lot of good things this week. 3 days of meetings with the French president. We're all seeing what's happening in terms of North and South Korea and the prospect of preventing a nuclear Korean peninsula. But then you have Fox and Friends. Then you have the VA designate secretary having to drop out. And folks like you think what?
Folks like me think that if you're looking at it from what impacts Americans and the world, this was a fantastic week. Right? I mean, North and South Korea actually talking, and you mentioned in your setup there that he took credit for it. Well, the South Korean president this morning gave him credit for it. So South Korea is crediting him for that. And I think you have to. This is a huge step in North and South Korea. It really is. And I don't think that we should look past the idea that President Clinton, President Bush, President Obama all kicked the can down the road. Trump walks in. He's got a big mouth, but he's carrying a big stick. He's used it around the world a few times. Kim Jong-un took notice. He's talking. We could actually see peace. This is monumental for the world, and it just completely should obfuscate anything on Fox and Friends or that sort of nonsense that the media loves to take a lot of time with that doesn't impact Americans. It just doesn't.
Fair enough.
Well, what happened on Fox and Friends, it was almost like he got up, ate his Wheaties, had 5 shots of espresso, and then for 35 minutes, he just went on and on and on. And what was really critical is what he did to his own case with Michael Cohen. I mean, 2 hours after that Fox and Friends interview, there was a federal prosecutors put into documents that what he had said during the Fox and Friends interview. And there was a lot of things that he said during that kind of crazy ramble that's going to have long-term effects. Including
what the president had to say about the Russia investigation and his own Justice Department. Let's take a look.
They have a witch hunt against the President of the United States going on. I've taken the position, and I don't have to take this position, and maybe I'll change, that I will not be involved with the Justice Department. I will wait till this is over. It's a total... it's all lies, and it's a horrible thing that's going on, a horrible thing. So I'm very disappointed in my Justice Department. But because of the fact that it's going on, and I think you'll understand this, I have decided that I won't be involved. I may change my mind at some point because what's going on is a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace.
So, Wendy, on one hand, you have, as Rod's explained, really historic events when it comes to Korea and where we're at there, involving American national interest here. But then you have that, which looks like the president ranting and raving on national television.
Well, Alan, this is a repeated pattern that I've talked about on this show before. As soon as Trump gets some sort of movement, some sort of achievement, some sort of accomplishment in his administration, he tramples on it with a display of this kind. This is the reason that we don't see much of him. Trump has had, since the Republican convention that nominated him, a total of 3 solo press conferences. That's 4. And now, of course, he's had others like the ones with Macron and Merkel this week, where you have the traditional appearance before the press of 2 leaders when they meet. But in terms of solo press conferences, no president in modern history has had anywhere near as few actual exposures to extemporaneous exposure to questioning as Donald Trump has, and what you saw was why.
All right, we are just getting warmed up. We'll have much more on the week in Washington right after we check the first alert weather, so stay with us. Welcome back. We're talking about the week in Washington, and joining us for more are Rita Farentino, the former chair of the Sarasota Democratic Party, Rod Thompson of the RevolutionaryAct.com, and Wendy March of the Tampa Bay Times. We should keep talking about Korea because we were, this has been a thorn in the side of every president since 1950. But Rod, let me start with you because I remember when Barack Obama was running for president and he suggested he would meet with somebody like a North Korean leader or a leader from Iran, and he was roundly criticized by both Republicans and including Hillary Clinton, for even that suggestion. But why is this suddenly a good idea?
Okay, I can explain that. I keep getting this question all the time, and I can explain that. Because at least a lot of people, such as myself, maybe Hillary too, saw Barack Obama as somebody who was weak on foreign affairs, and he led weakly. And having him negotiate for the United States with foreign leaders such as that, with a tyrant, from a position of weakness could end up in disaster. Take the Iran situation with the nuclear pact. But when you have Trump, who comes in with a big stick, clearly is a strong leader on foreign stage in that respect. Clearly the tyrants have, he's got the attention of them from Russia to Iran to ISIS, which has gone to North Korea. That's a whole different sort of person meeting with them in that case. They're meeting because they feel like they're dragged in, whereas with Obama, it wouldn't have been that situation.
Rita, do Democrats give Trump credit for getting this far?
Absolutely not. What we have in Korea is the fact that we've got North Korea and South Korea diplomatically meeting, and it is historic, and it's very hopeful. And I think that, Donald Trump sitting there taking a victory lap is, uncalled for.
The South Koreans gave him that victory lap. It was their foreign minister that said that this is because of him.
Wendy, I can't help but also remember it took Nixon to go to China. But doing so did not save him from Watergate.
No, and it also didn't make China our ally. The Korea thing, I'm sorry, Rod, but it's an unhatched chicken. There have been numerous agreements of this kind before. They all collapsed. In some cases, the United States was blamed for the collapse of those agreements. This is at least the third major denuclearization agreement, and this isn't even an agreement yet. There are lots of outs and loopholes. The statement that the two Koreas put out refers to removing all nuclear weapons from the peninsula. Well, that would mean U.S. nuclear weapons also. This is something that's never been acceptable. The statement also says that they will seek three-party or four-party talks toward ending the war. It does not end the war. It says they'll seek three- or four-party talks. Well, one of China's conditions for ending the war historically has been removal of all U.S. troops. Is Donald Trump going to agree to that? But if he doesn't, then why is he sending out a tweet saying the Korean War is over?
Rod?
So past presidents, he's right, sir. We've had past presidents that have negotiated some sort of pause in the North Korean nuclear program, basically by bribing him, by giving his starving people some food for a while. This is what we've done. This is what Clinton did, and Clinton said we had it. It was all taken care of. I believe Bush did it. I believe Obama did it. I think they've all done that. But we can't do that anymore. He has not only nuclear weapons, he has advanced nuclear weapons, and he has advanced missiles. We can't do that anymore. So Trump sends aircraft carriers. That's different than saying, we'll give you some food for a while. This is a whole different kind of negotiation. I'm not saying that it couldn't fall apart and come to nothing. I'm not saying that at all. Sure could, because it's Kim Jong-un, right? But I'm saying this has a whole different dynamic than previous ones.
All right, two things I want to get to, including that the House Intelligence Committee released its report today saying, and we were saying the Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee released their report saying there was no collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia, and they disagree with the intelligence community as a whole that Russia was helping the Trump campaign win this election. Rita, your take on that?
Well, first of all, I think that we know that this is a very partisan, completely partisan report, and it is in conflict. And I'd love to hear what Wendy has to say about it, because you've been reporting on this, haven't you?
Well, no, not specifically. I will just say that I will trust the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA over a group of Republican congressmen.
And Rod, let me ask you this, because this comes out on the day where that Russian lawyer who met with the Trumps in the Trump Tower, it comes out today that she in fact was an informant for Russian intelligence. So it seems on face value there was a lot of work to be done there at the House Intelligence Committee that that went away for some reason.
Well, the House Intelligence Committee has actually uncovered a lot that hadn't been uncovered. I mean, I think the whole dossier thing came out because of them. The stuff that Nunes has done and that he's required, a lot of stuff has come out because of the work they've done. Of course, it's totally partisan. Everything in Washington is totally partisan.
But it was also
That's a
Tom
given.
Rooney, our congressman here on the Suncoast, who said that the committee itself has no credibility because of everybody went to their political partisan corners, and he basically said that there was no credibility in terms of the output.
So two things there. It takes two to want to come together, and neither side did, so that's on both. Tom Rooney is stepping down because he doesn't like Trump, he doesn't like what's going on in Washington, he doesn't like anything, so he's washing his hands of it and moving on, and that's fine.
Okay.
But I think you need to remember on this that not all the American people have this total blind trust anymore in the CIA, and certainly not the FBI. And if we don't think that there's been criminality going on in the FBI from what we've seen now, then a certain part of America is not paying attention, because clearly with McCabe, there has been.
I really wanted to move on to something else, but Rita, let me give you a shot.
It's always fun when you're with Rod, because he certainly has all the Republican talking points down. So
I am a Republican.
Yeah, so what's the next?
Okay. It came out this week that Patrick Murphy, the former congressman from West Palm Beach, who we remember ran for U.S. Senate in 2016, and David Jolly, the former congressman from Pinellas County, are considering, and they may be polling about whether to run jointly for governor and lieutenant governor. Patrick Murphy, the Democrat, running in the Democratic Party primary, and the Republican David Jolly as his running mate. Wendy, what do you think of that?
Well, I've got to say, Alan, what I think of it is it's a sign that none of the Democratic candidates for governor has really caught fire. And that's the only reason that this balloon would even be considered seriously.
But Rita, be that as it may, there is also a hunger among Florida residents in general to get past Democrats and Republicans. A ticket of a Democrat and Republican, I would imagine that would be very appealing for a lot of people.
Well, I think Democrats are very focused on winning in November, and they're going to back the candidate who can win in November. And I think with the Patrick Murphy Jolly trial balloon that was sent out, I know Patrick well. I did not get a call from him saying, hey, this is something I'm going to do. Will you support me? So I'm not even sure how much it has, other than they sent out a trial balloon.
Rod, don't you think that there are a lot of people who are out there who look at both the Republicans who are running are extreme conservatives, and you may say that the Democrats are extreme liberals. Here's a team that may be more appealing because they're right down the center.
Yeah, two thoughts. I don't think that all the Republicans are extreme liberals, for one thing. Number two, putting a Democrat at the top of the ticket, kind of an empty suit like Patrick Murphy, no matter how great the Republican was, I guarantee you 90% of Floridians can't even name the lieutenant governor. So that position has no real power. There's no upside to Republicans in voting for that.
I'm glad we were able to get to this. We have to take a quick break, and we'll be back for final thoughts in a moment, so stay tuned. And our guests join us right now for final thoughts, and I haven't told any of them what this is about. But Wendy, we're going to start with you. According to a new Quinnipiac poll, a majority of Republicans see the news media as the enemy. 51% of a majority of Republicans see the news media as the enemy of the people, compared with 37% of them who view the media as an important part of democracy. By contrast, 91% of Democrats and 70% of independents see the media as an important part of democracy.
Okay, first of all, what's the media? This table is part of it. Are we enemies of the people? Rita, Rod, you? Are we enemies of the people? I hope that what's going on here is that this line of thinking is a fad that's suddenly been popularized by somebody in the White House, and it's the kind of publicity-driven thinking that will fade when the publicity and the source of it fades. I hope so, but it's also, to me, an example of an attack on the institutions that keep our democracy functioning.
Rod, before you were the intellectual heartbeat of the conservative community, you were a longtime journalist.
I was.
And a good one.
Well, thank you.
And many would consider you still a
Thank you.
a reporter.
Yeah, thank you. In some sense, yes. And I think, though, I can understand where that's coming from, because in the newsrooms I worked in, I was a very lone conservative, and I would call Republicans locally. This will crack you up, but I was labeled consistently as part of the liberal media, right? But let me tell you, the issue is with your setup piece there, when you had the Fox and Friends things, you had the train wreck picture, you had the quote from The Daily Show. That's the sort of thing that's lumped in with journalism, and it probably drives Wendy March crazy.
Last word.
Good one.
I mean, 91% of Democrats think that the media has an important role, but are we the enemy of the American people?
So I would definitely say that most of the people in my world respect the free press and want to see it and the institutions continue to be supported.
All right, we have to leave it there, but before we go, we want to share with you what some of you had to say about last night's show about the firing of Venice High School's football coach John Peacock. Just months after he led their team to the state championship, Peacock was fired for liking a tweet out of one of his players. The tweet was viewed as racist, which led to his firing. We went to Facebook for your thoughts, and James says, I think everyone needs to toughen up just a little bit. Society has gotten too thin-skinned in the last decade or so. Laura says shouldn't have been involved with his students on social media to begin with, and then he would never have been in this mess. Kenya says obviously there is more to this story, and this was the last straw. He should be thankful he still has his teaching job. It's not all about winning football games. Well, if you'd like to join the conversation on tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/mysuncoast.com.abc7. And FYI, you can watch past discussions on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. We want to thank our guests for being here tonight. Rita Farentino, of the former chair of the Sarasota Democratic Party, Rod Thompson of the RevolutionaryAct.com, and Wendy March of the Tampa Bay Times.